Oh, that's the wrong one. God, I do that every time. Okay, so can you see my screen okay?
Yep, I can see that just fine. Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, sometimes they get let's see. Oh shoot, I don't want to do that, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Well, no, I want to get this up there, and I don't care if the other slides are up, but put it full all the way up, then I can't see anybody that's coming on. And so I just don't want these others. I was going to take these other slides off, but that's okay. All right, so we're going to cover torts tonight, but what I wanted to ask you, do you have any questions about anything before we get going?
Well, so far so good. I'm just one of the questions I did have, and I mean I don't know how much this applies, but it had more in regards to the exam.
Yep.
Because when I just want to know, like, what are some good tips or anything that we can maybe look for while we do our units or our chapters, like specific things that will help us in preparation for the exam. Because I did all the readings, everything, and I was just trying to be, but I just didn't really know exactly what to look for. Do we usually just want to look for like the objectives that we have before each unit, or kind of like those outlines that you have for us and try to answer those questions? And will that be the best way to prepare for things?
Yeah, and my intent, I apologize, I'm a little bit behind. I meant to have these office hours prior to, and so my intent is the office hours coming up, you know, we'll prep for the exam. So the material I'm covering will be in the exam. In fact, I had somebody call, you know, and sometimes those questions can be really confusing. And so I know one of the things that they taught us when I was going into law school, and it's pretty much the same with any kind of exam, the first thing you want to do is get rid of anything that doesn't apply so that you can focus on that, and then read what the question is asking you. And that's what helped this student as he's reading, you know, the last question, is really go to the call. That's what it's called. What is the call of the question? Okay. And so that will sometimes, that'll help as well. Hi, Ann, welcome.
Hi.
And so one of the things that always helps, and you're going to see some cases tonight that I'll share, and that's what I encourage you to reference our cases, because that's how the courts have ruled, and that's really how you kind of want to apply the questions in the exam. Okay. That's what we're really looking for. So anyway, so we'll get going. So tort law is based on the idea that everyone has certain rights, and along with those rights, everybody has to respect the rights of others. And so the purpose of tort law is to enforce those rights and duties. How many have the two of you, had you ever heard of torts prior to the class? Have you ever heard the term?
Yeah.
Tort? Okay, good. Because a lot of people don't. It's like, well, what is a tort? That's weird. So it's a private wrong committed by one person against another. Very different from criminal law. However, you can have a tort turn into criminal law. So they can be intentional or unintentional, and I'm going to show you a case about that. So I don't know why I have this. I need to get rid of this slide with creating my slides. So we have negligence, and negligence plays into a lot of things in torts. It's the failure to exercise a degree of care that a reasonable person would have exercised. And I don't know okay, there. We're going to talk about reasonable care in the next office hour, and I've got a number of cases that I want to share with you as to show how the courts look at reasonable care. So tortfeasor. Anybody heard of that?
Nope.
That term?
I have not heard of that term.
Okay. So again, I encourage you to look at the terms that I think in the syllabus you've got some of those. That's the person who commits the tort. They interfere with that other person's rights, and that's kind of remember that. So there's 3 elements to any kind of tort. It's the possession of a certain right by an innocent party. So use yourself as an example you're driving down the road. Okay, so what do you have a right to when you're driving down the road? You have a right to be in that space, that lane, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
On the right side.
Yeah. So think about the right that you have as you're driving down the road. All right. You have the right to be in that lane. Right. Nobody else has the right to be there.
You have the right to go that speed limit that they have set for you.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. So, you start thinking about some of these rights that you have, and you can apply it to a lot of different areas other than, just driving your car. So a violation of those rights by the tortfeasor results in an injury that somehow hurts you. So the person and those rights were violated. And the example that I'm giving here, is personal injury law. That is actually a specialty in law. It's this personal injury law. Big money in it too. So the person injured is called the victim. And so this is good to understand. I don't know if you can see my picture. That's actually a funky look. It looks like a caterpillar or something, huh? It's actually a person with crutches and a bad leg.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're looking at a lawsuit, you want to make sure that you get in the habit of looking at P and D. So P being what? The plaintiff. Yep. And D is the defendant. So you get used to that in law. So it's P versus D. And always know that plaintiff is the one suing, or the injured party. Okay, defendant is usually the tortfeasor. Whether it's really a tortfeasor or not, that's what the court's going to prove. So let me ask you this. Let's say we have a case. P sues D. D loses. Defendant loses. And now he doesn't like the outcome, so what's he going to do? Defendant doesn't like how the court ruled, so what would he do?
He appeals to the higher court.
Right. Just like in your exam, you appeal for a better score. Okay, so in that case, now you're going to appeal. The case turns around, and who becomes the plaintiff?
Would the defendant become the plaintiff then?
Yeah, defendant now becomes the plaintiff.
Mm-hmm.
And this is important to understand because you're going to see a lot of cases that have an appeal, okay? And it can be appealed all the way up to the Supreme Court. So it can have multiple case numbers. So you're always going to have an original case number, all right?
So that's kind of, I don't know if you've heard of the whole case with that that company VidAngel where they edited movies, but that's kind of their situation. The plaintiff was Disney suing them, and they were the defendant in that case. But now they've actually appealed to the Supreme Court, so now they're the plaintiff going.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So one thing to remember is you will get a new case number for every time it goes up into another stage.
Okay.
So you don't keep the same number. All right. That case number, and there's a quiz question, I think, coming up on one of the other exams, and it asks about cases. And I'll cover that in next week's lesson. But as you're looking at your cases, you notice that there's a number, okay? And that has to do with the jurisdiction, the court in where it's filed, and whether it's criminal, tort, it has different meanings. Each of the numbers have different meanings, and it usually has the year that it was filed. And then they start all over again the next year. But for every case that's filed, you have a new number. And so if you're ever briefing a case, you have to make sure you're briefing the case that you're supposed to brief. So are you briefing the original appeal, or usually you're briefing the last case, and then you follow this chain back to the original case, and you give a little summary on it.
Okay.
Okay, but that's not the outcome. The outcome is where we're at today. So regardless of where it started. So the difference between criminal law and tort law is one is a crime committed against the public good, and the other one is, like we talked about, against a particular person or property. So a crime, what's a crime? I'm sure you can think of one right at the top of your head.
A robbery.
Yeah, a robbery, murder. So these are, even though somebody very well was injured, okay, it's still a crime against the public good, and that's what makes the difference. So do you know what could be some other differences in the two? Think about how they're the
burden of proof, maybe.
Could be, but you're going to have both. You're going to have burden of proof in both. Burden of proof in both. Think about the outcome.
I'm guessing one you'll get a jail sentence, and the other you have to pay damages.
Yeah. So in a crime, you very well could face monetary penalties, but most often there's going to be some sort of a sentence passed down. In a tort, very rarely it's just a civil penalty. Yeah, that's definitely the difference. There's a lot of different nuances, but that's generally what it is. So a tort is considered a civil or private wrong rather than a criminal, but sometimes a tort can also be a crime. All of that is an assault is both a tort and a crime because it hurts the individual and then also poses a threat to all members of society. And we're going to talk about a few torts this week. Next week we'll talk more about a few, like emotional distress. We'll talk a little bit about assault and battery, but next week I'll get some cases on it. Penalties in criminal law, like we talked about, we need to protect that individual or protect society from that individual by punishing them. And of course, you know, we all know that penalties for these criminal offenses are very serious. So remedies in tort law are, you know, they're to compensate the victim for injuries. So, you know, think about you're driving down the road and that car comes over and hits you. So how are you going to be compensated?
Usually they'll pay for, well, if they have insurance on their car, then they'll pay for the damages to your vehicle that were sustained. And then if there was any type of damage to you or any injuries, then they would also take care of those.
Yeah.
Medical that happens from that.
So I'm going to open up something real here. I want to reference something. Hold on one second. So how many of you remember, let's see, what was the name of that? I was trying to find out what it was. Pull this up, see if I can, that's not it. Actually, I have, that one's on the show. Remember the McDonald's coffee case?
Oh, where she came through the drive-through and then they spill on her and she sued them because it was too hot.
Yes. And oh, Here it is. Okay, so that's the one that I want to pull up real quick. Okay, okay, so I'm gonna leave this up here so you can see it.
Mhm.
Okay, so these are some interesting facts. This was, can you, let me, whoops. Okay, there we go. So, this is kind of off the subject, but just to share with you. So the coffee she purchased caused her to suffer severe and excruciating third-degree pains. Her medical bills were almost $200,000. She had never filed a lawsuit before, and she was only asking McDonald's to pay some of her bills. They had over 700 coffee burn claims filed against it before this claim, and was well aware that its coffee was burning people all over the country. It had already paid out over $500,000. So they intentionally heated the coffee to 190 degrees Fahrenheit, despite the fact they knew other restaurants only heated it to 160. So it was capable of burning off your skin and causing muscle damage in just 2 seconds. So their tactic in the case was to blame her for injuries, claiming she didn't take her pants off fast enough when the coffee spilled. They also argued that her age might have caused her injuries because her skin is thinner, and so had she been younger. And then during the case, McDonald's own quality assurance manager was forced to admit that the corporation was well aware of the risk serving dangerously hot coffee, but stated the corporation wasn't going to do anything about it. She was not driving the car at the time. Actually, she was seated in the front passenger seat, and it was stopped in the parking lot. She had the coffee between her knees and was attempting to take off the top so she could pour cream and sugar into it. So some interesting tidbits on that particular case. And that's a tort. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure McDonald's ruled, or the courts ruled, strict liability in that case. And I'm going to cover some strict liability in a minute. You did have strict liability on this test. So intentional torts are often most actions that deliberately hurt. So the courts look at intentional and unintentional, all right? So most common are assault, battery, false imprisonment, defamation, invasion of privacy, and infliction of emotional distress. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about those, but I am going to cover one, which is Garrett versus Daly. And this particular case, I love my little thing here. It's Torts Illustrated. So you can see my man is pulling the chair out and the person falls back. And that's basically what happened here. In this case, plaintiff brought suit for assault and battery against a defendant, a 5-year-old boy. And this case is an icon in law school. Everybody studied this case. So the plaintiff, so who's the plaintiff here?
The little boy? No, the woman?
Nope, the woman, right here, our woman.
Yeah.
So she alleges that defendant, the little boy, intentionally moved a chair as she was about to sit down. So the picture is, if I'm not mistaken, it's been a while, they're out in the yard, okay, and they're having kind of like a little garden tea party. And it's a little, like, really ridiculous. And he comes out there and takes her chair as she was about to sit down. But the trial court found he was instead trying to prevent the injury and had no intention of injuring her. So the rule of law, so this is what you have to look at, and Benjamin, this kind of goes to what you were asking about. The relevant intent for the purposes of assault and battery may be found by establishing that the defendant knew, so the little boy, to a substantial certainty that contact or apprehension of contact would result from his actions. Okay, so he, and knowing that there was a grave risk to the individual. So the defendant's age in such a case is relevant only insofar as it demonstrates the defendant's likely degree of knowledge. So this is the little boy's knowledge based upon his experience and understanding.
Well,
So-
that's one of the questions I had with that. Because would they even be allowed to bring a suit against a 5-year-old then?
Oh, they
Because of
did.
their.
Yeah, they did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's a good question. Is a defendant's age relevant in determining whether or not he has committed an intentional tort? The age is relevant only insofar as it demonstrates the defendant's likely degree of knowledge based upon his experience and understanding.
Yeah,
Wow.
but isn't that subjective, his degree of understanding? He's 5 years old.
Okay, so what do you think would play into this right here? I mentioned it very early on, and you might not have been on at that time. Benjamin, do you remember? It was one of the definitions that we'll talk about next week. Reasonable person. So it's reasonable person. So what's the care of reasonable person? So that's that can play into it. Okay.
Okay.
So in this situation, could a 5-year-old boy pull a chair out? Maybe. You know, what little 5-year-old boys, you know, they can be mischievous. But there's other things that'll play. So the requisite intent for assault and battery is substantial certainty. Now remember this, substantial certainty that contact or apprehensions of contact would result from his actions, and that so the knowledge of a grave risk that such contact or apprehension could occur is insufficient. So the issue that the court asked, this is what they were trying to solve. Let me just quickly go back to the facts. So the plaintiff alleges that the defendant, the 5-year-old boy, moved the chair away just as she was about to sit down, causing her to be injured. At trial, the judge believed the testimony of the defendant, finding that he did not act with any intent to cause offensive contact, injury, or embarrassment. So the trial judge dismissed the case on the strength of the findings, and the plaintiff appealed.
Maybe go to bed.
So the issue is, does the finding that a defendant did not intend to cause offensive contact, injury, or embarrassment to a plaintiff warrant dismissal of the plaintiff's claim for assault and battery? So do you understand what that said?
Yeah.
Okay. So it held the court reversed the trial court's dismissal of the case and remanded the case. So what did they do here?
They sent it back for retrial?
Yeah, they sent it back to not for trial, but to review it. Okay.
Okay.
Remanded means remanded can go up or down also, by the way. It's just going to go back to a court, some court, for determination. So in this one, they wanted a determination of the extent to which the defendant knew. Can somebody turn your microphone down?
A question. Next on Tuesday,
I think it's Lynette. I think you need to turn yours up.
Can I get somebody to turn their microphone down or mute it? Okay, great, thanks. So based upon his experience and understanding that the injury would result from his actions. So that was where they went with this. They keep asking the same question right here, but in this case, they're introducing many of the critical distinctions that play in analyzing intent. So they discuss 3 cases of intent. 1, the intent to commit the act of moving the chair. So the intent to commit the act of moving the chair was to help her. It was to if I remember, I'm trying to remember what he was doing, but he was helping. Her intent was not to pull it out so she would fall down, but to help her.
Maybe to be a gentleman.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Slide it out.
yeah. The intent to injure, embarrass, or cause apprehension. They found that did not exist.
Okay.
And then 3, the intent that may be inferred from what the defendant knew was substantially certain to result. And in this case, the trial court focused exclusively on the second category, the intent to injure, embarrass, or cause apprehension. And they dismissed the case when they found it couldn't be found. The trial court, or the appeals court, they placed a greater emphasis on the third category, which would clearly allow liability in a far greater array of situations. So it's, what you have to look at is probably the most recent court case when it comes to establishing liability. And so you can see how each court kind of waffled back and forth and what they're trying to determine here. So one of the things that I would like for you guys to do, and so I'll post this, I want you to read through this, and I did not put up there what the final verdict was. So the first court reversed the trial court's dismissal of the case and remanded the case for determination. So I will follow up on this next week, but you read through this, you'll see the court cases there, and you can read through this, and now that you have a little bit of understanding what it's about, you can kind of have some fun with this one. So I'm going to jump over to strict liability, because we had some strict liability. We had a strict liability question. Let's see, what was it? Oh, that was the alligator, right?
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Where I don't remember the name, but yeah, he went into he had signs up, but he somehow got in the cage and it bit his leg off.
Okay, so how did you do on it?
I got that wrong because I believe that he was at fault because it said
Who was that?
the one that got his leg bit off.
Who was that?
Because it said that he thought he was an alligator whisperer. So to me, it seemed like he knew what he was doing.
See, I got that one wrong as well, because I thought that it said there he hadn't received any type of permission, nothing, and he somehow got into the cage without any.
Okay.
So
Good. Okay, that's okay. So one of the a piece of advice: be careful with red herrings. Does anybody know what a red herring is?
No.
I do not.
Okay, so it's a long term. Takes you off on a path you don't want to go. All right, false. What's the word I want to use? A distraction, a false path to go.
Okay.
So that when they tell you that it's a alligator whisperer, that's kind of giving you a red herring. It's throwing something in there that doesn't need to be, and it's going to throw you off the path, distract you. So watch out for those, okay? And that's really common because that happens in law, all right? Facts. Alligator whisperer, maybe for another case, might be relevant, okay? But this is strict liability. So in this case, even if the person did not intend for the wrong to occur. So in this one, the alligator, the dude that got bit, the plaintiff, he didn't intend to get bit, he was just an idiot. But so if the snake creeps out of the house and bites your neighbor, you will be held responsible even though you didn't let the snake out. Ownership is enough to hold you responsible. So let's talk about, let's say you have a dog, a pit bull, or what are some of those spider dogs, pit bulls, And they're in your yard, and you have a sign up that says "Dog will bite, stay away."
Even
And
if the dog gets out, it's still our responsibility because it is our dog.
yep. So if it bites, it's going to be your responsibility.
But what is so I'm so confused about is this one says if the snake gets out of your house and goes to your neighbor and bite them, then you're responsible. But with the alligators, it was still in the person's property, and permission wasn't given to go onto that property.
That's correct. But you're still held liable because that's part of strict liability. So animals owned or possessed, abnormally dangerous acts, and product liability. And we are not going to talk about product liability today, but that's not a new one, but a whole different category. So there is okay, yeah, I did. Okay. So I didn't include it. So here is a case, Miller versus Civil Constructors, and a bullet's fired from a nearby quarry, and it strikes a person. The quarry is owned by Civil Constructors, it was a quarry used by police for target practice. And the case seems rather cut and dry, and remember, negligence does not have to be proven, but what does have to pan out is whether using a quarry to discharge a firearm is considered abnormally dangerous. So here's what the court will consider. The activity is highly risky and could cause harm to a person, chattel, or property. It is highly likely that harm will result from the activity. So apply this to the snake. Apply this to the alligator. It's highly likely that alligator is going to cause harm, even if he is enclosed. So do you remember the recent
Walt Disney?
The zoo thing? Oh my gosh, yeah. What was the one that the alligator ate the kid?
Yeah.
I mean, that is like tragic. So, but even more so, so in that case, they know that alligators are out there. They've been seen out there.
Yeah.
And the public has contact. So that was strict liability. But the gorilla, where the little boy fell into the gorilla pen. So the zoo has a duty of care to prevent that. Even if people are, acting ignorant and, but for lack of a better term, the zoo has a responsibility. Okay. So the act is not one that is commonly recognized. It is inappropriate to be carried out in the location, and whether its value to the community outweighs the risk involved. So think of those as you are applying that to the situations and the questions. You can ask yourselves some of those. Let's see, what else did I have? Oh, okay, here's another one. This is a good one. This one is strict liability as well. So this is, animals. Let me just add this real quick on strict liability. So this goes to your question, Ann, where livestock, abnormally dangerous animals, they fall under this category, and they include snakes, tigers, monkeys, and bears. And you may think wild animals are not included because they live in the wild, but that is not true. And so they talk about possession of a wild animal, like that are housed at the zoo. Liability is assumed.
Okay.
Okay. Listen, there's a case where there's a museum located in Tucson, Arizona, and it's a place where the tourists, they can experience, Arizona's indigenous landscape, and In 2009, there was a Dutch tourist, and plaintiff Zagarius, he was brutally attacked by a javelina, kind of like a jaguar and something else, and while touring the grounds, and he sustained extensive damage, torn muscles, severed veins and arteries, and so much damage that he was hospitalized for a week. And although this animal is not particularly aggressive, they will attack if cornered. And they were commonly seen on the trails. And although the museum did not own these animals, they were part of the scenery in a wildlife attraction. So the question was, who was in possession of this animal? And that's where it gets a little muddy. And the museum operators claimed that the javelina was not one of the most commonly seen animals. They performed some blood tests on the animal that they had in their possession, and it turned out that they couldn't match anything. In fact, the animal that attacked Zagarius was never found. But the looming question of strict liability was still left unanswered. And at last report, the plaintiff's attorneys, they filed further action claiming that regardless of the ownership, possession is all the law requires. And so the javelinas are wild, so no provisions were made to corral owned animals. So therefore they can come and go freely across the boundaries. But as of to date, no verdict has been rendered, but it is going to be probably a landmark case where ownership does not have to be established. So anyway, just kind of an interesting side note.
Okay.
So in this one, the test is to determine the standard of care for the tort of negligence. And the judgment was written by Judge Hand. Judge Hand is incredibly famous. His name is Leonard Hand. And he describes what is now called the calculus of negligence, or the Hand test. And so at the bottom down here, you can see it right here. So if the burden less the cost of injury times the probability of occurrence, then the accused will not have met the standard of care required. But if the burden exceeds the cost of injury times the probability of occurrence, then the accused may have met the standard of care. So that's a pretty standard calculus out there that we use now. So in this case, this bullet's fired from a nearby quarry, it strikes a person, used for target practice, and we went through the things that the court considered. And it does not take all the actions for an act to be considered dangerous. One or more of the elements is all it needs. So how did the court rule? So in this, the barge sank, the Anna C. barge sank, and it's so the Pennsylvania Railroad Company, they chartered the boat from the Marine Company, which was loaded with flour, owned by the United States. And so before the accident, Anna C. was moored, I think it was at Pier 52 on the North River, along with several other barges. And the barges at the pier were tied together by mooring lines. And one barge at 52 was tied to another set of barges at the adjacent public pier. On the day of the accident, there was a tug, the Carroll, and it was sent to remove a barge from the public pier. In the process of removing the barge, the line between the barges at the public pier, and 52 was removed. So the line between the two was removed. After the removal of the line, the barges at Pier 52 broke free. This resulted in the sinking of the Anna C. The United States, which leased the Anna C, sued Carroll Towing, owner of Carroll, in an indemnity action. So, in this case, Judge Hands uses the hand test because there was no general rule to deal with liability. When a barge with no one on board breaks free and causes damage. So he proposes this algebraic formula to determine if the standard of care has been met. So it's just some info for you to understand all the many things that weigh in when we're determining liability. Okay, how did I jump from assault and battery? How did I insert strict liability? So assault and battery, I'm going to talk about false imprisonment. I'm going to talk about next week. Invasion of privacy. So does anybody have any questions on anything so far?
No, I was just wondering if these this presentation that we're seeing here, did we get a copy of that?
Yeah, you do after I clean it up.
Okay.
I've got some slides in there I want to pull out, but yes, you will have it because there's some good information on here you can use. Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm just going to share a couple more cases with you. They're kind of fun. Okay. This one is Bosley versus Andrews. This is a true case. And another one of our favorite trial judges and individuals that we love in law is the Honorable Michael A. Musmano. Let me tell you just a little bit about him real quick. He really led a remarkable life. He joined the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. He was an illustrious career, had an illustrious career as a lawyer, U.S. congressman, and author. And he was a presiding judge at the Nuremberg war crime trials, and was also a defense lawyer in a very high-profile trial. His opinions, and that's what I want you to look at here. I'm ending our office hour with some fun stuff. His opinions are priceless, and they're concoctions of very deep-hearted passion and a brutal common sense, and they're delivered in a very highly literate and very hilarious prose. So, you'll be able to read this again, but it's really cute. So this is a true case. This woman sues a neighbor whose cows trespassed on her farmland to eat her crops. And after being chased away, this is Musmano's language, the bovine buccaneers returned. March. That's really cute. So this time they come, 8 of them with reinforcements. They brought along their boyfriend, a 1,500-pound Hereford white-faced bull. So the bull took chase after the plaintiff, causing her to suffer a heart attack. Now, I certainly don't wish ill will on anyone. But a majority of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, they rejected the woman's claim for negligent infliction of emotional distress damages. Okay? Following the traditional rule that such a claim cannot be maintained in the absence of physical impact with the plaintiff. The bull never touched the plaintiff. Now, there are cases out there, so that's why you're going to see in this dissent what Musmano says, because there are cases out there where there was no there was no physical touching in anything, but emotional distress was imposed and was confirmed. So in his dissent, he skewered the majority for what he saw as an unjust result. He closed his opinion by stating the majority's approach is unsupportable in law, logic, and elementary justice, and I shall continue to dissent from it until the cows come home. So that was his closing remarks. So I'm going to share one more with you, which is totally crazy. This is just a goofy case. So in this one, this one is just really crazy. So in this one, the Joseph Rosenberg, he is finding my notes. What did I do with my notes? Oh, there it is right here. So this guy, he's out there dancing at a wedding reception with his sister-in-law and fellow plaintiff, and he slips on asparagus. The whole issue is whether the defendant caterer, who Mr. Rosenberg sues, had negligently spilled the asparagus on the dance floor. The trial court, he dismisses the lawsuit, okay? He says, no way, on the theory that the offending asparagus could have been unwittingly transported onto the dance floor after becoming entrapped in the apparel of the dancers. Okay. So this is a rather, I don't want to call it frivolous, but totally goofy. You know, the men they're attired in tuxedos, and the pants were not mounted with cuffs. So remember that. And let's see, did I have anything? No, I guess not. Anyway, it goes on. The judge's conclusions are as far-fetched as going to Holland for hollandaise sauce. What was said. There is no evidence in the case that anybody table hopped. It is absurd to assume that a man's coat or sleeve could scoop up enough asparagus and sauce to inundate a dance floor to the extent of a 3-foot circumference. Yeah, circumference. And it's bizarre to conjecture that a woman's dress without pockets and without excessive material could latch onto such a quantity of asparagus, carry it 20 feet, and cause this puddle. So anyway, Musmano, he marches out there and rejects this, and it goes on and on. But it was a cute reaction to some of these really ridiculous lawsuits that you see out there. That is all I have tonight. I will post this. And so next week I'm going to cover some of these other torts. We'll cover some of the questions on the exam, and we'll start prep for the next exam. So that's what you can expect next week. Anything else that I can answer for you, I can share for you?
Yeah, I have 2 questions. I can't seem to get Google Hangouts to work. I've watched some videos. Well, the live one. I can get like Google Hangouts where it's just a video call. But for the live one, going through YouTube, that part that allows you to choose an easy option, Google Hangouts or an encoded video, it's grayed out for me. So I don't have that choice, and I don't know why.
Ooh. So have you tried to reach out to tech support at all to help with that?
No, I haven't, because I'm...
Can you send me, so do this and send me, can you send me a snapshot of what you're looking at?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, I'm struggling to visualize that. goodness gracious, I tell you what, this Google Hangouts on Air I was just getting the hang of Adobe Connect.
Mhm.
When they switched it up. But actually, I really like HOA. It's really nice. I think it works out great. So I much
do when you can get it to work.
yeah. I much prefer this over Adobe Connect. So do send me a snapshot of that and let me see how I can help you. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. So are you saying that you can't get you guys can't share Hangouts together? Is that what, or you can't copy?
I can do a Hangout, and then I would have to use a third application to do a screen video of it. But
Yeah.
I can't do a Hangout live because it has to go through YouTube, and my YouTube is not allowing me to do simple videos. It's asking me for encoding and all that stuff.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to help you, but I'll sure take a look at it. And yeah, send me a screenshot, and I might even forward it over to tech support or my peers in the classes to see if they've got anything they can offer.
Okay.
Okay.
I think sometimes with the YouTube, if you have like any type of YouTube restriction, like privacy settings or anything like that, sometimes it can prevent you from creating a video. So you might want to go into your YouTube settings and just check and see what the privacy settings are at, and if there's one that might be allowing you to make a video or participating in one that's going live. I know that mine had some of those, and so I just went through and changed them, and it ended up working out just fine. So
Okay.
Oh, great advice. Thanks, Benjamin. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I remember. In fact, I remember the tutorial that I was watching mentioned that now that you bring that up. So yeah, take a look at that and see if that'll help you at all.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, great. So Benjamin, real quick, I saw a little sweetie pie sitting on your lap there for a while, so getting an early start on college.
Oh yeah, my wife's pregnant with our second, and she just got out of the tub and just finished everything. So she came in and she just wanted to see what I was doing. I heard this knocks, and I just heard this little tiny knock at the door. So I just opened it up, and she just came. She got on my lap, but then she's like, "Oh, what Dad's doing? I don't want to. I don't want to stay in her."
Oh,
she ended up walking away. So.
Well, listen. Thanks for joining me tonight. Okay.
Oh yeah, well thanks for so much for answering those questions, and I really appreciate your help. I really want to take this class seriously and learn as much as I can. I find this stuff very interesting because, well, right now I'm actually, like I said, I'm in business, and I'm actually a manager of a jewelry store.
That's right. Yeah, so this will help.
Here in town, and
yeah,
they've actually asked me to move up within the company and everything. So that's kind of nice. But I love business, and this stuff really interests me. But that first exam, I was like, okay, and I feel really good that I got in there, and I was like, oh my goodness, I need to study a lot more. So
So let me just share with you, there is so much that is covered. I mean, what we cover in this one semester is like a whole year, prep. So there's a lot crammed into it. Okay? So don't get too stressed out. Okay?
Oh, I won't. Well, I really appreciate you and everything you do for us, and always answering my emails, helping out. You're great. Thank you so much.
Have a good evening. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
We'll see ya.
Bye, Ann. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much.
Okay, let me know. Send me an email that if you got your HOA stuff to work, okay?
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, this is where it's quick. You can't click that. So it's stuck in custom.
Oh. Can you bring that back up again?
Oh. Yeah, it's still there.
Oh, okay. I think it keeps going off.
Okay, let me see. Is it back up now?
Oh, there it is. There. Oh, why does it do that? It comes up and then it goes. There must be another trigger somewhere
Mm-hmm.
outside of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do what he advised me.
Info and settings. Can you go up to info and settings? Does that help you?
Info and settings here.
Up to your left. Yeah. I don't know if that will.
No, it's really not giving me much. Like I'm clicking and
Huh.
that's grayed out. I can get these three, but I
Yeah.
can't get that.
Hmm.
Oh.
Well, again, send it to me and give me a little bit more detail about what's you're not able to do, and I'm going to send it to my peers and see if they've got anything that they can offer.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. All right,
Thank you
thanks.
so much.
Okay, you're welcome. Have a good week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.